A single mother was fired for being 5 minutes late after helping a woman in trouble, never imagining she was the mother of her billionaire boss. Samantha Reed was running down a sidewalk in Palo Alto at 7:53 in the morning. Her left shoe made a strange noise with every step, something between a mouse squeak and a cry for help. Her hair, which she had spent 20 minutes trying to tame, now looked like it had fought with a fan and lost badly. "You can do this, Samantha," she muttered between heavy breaths. "You are strong. You are a warrior. You are a lioness." A pigeon landed in front of her. Samantha swerved, almost twisted her ankle, and kept running. You are a lioness who was almost taken down by a pigeon, but still a lioness. 4 blocks to the company. The watch on her wrist marked every second like a sentence, and her shoe kept squeaking as if it were narrating its own tragedy. That was when she saw her. An elegant older woman with perfectly arranged white hair and a flawless navy blue dress was crossing the street slowly. Very slowly. Too slowly for the light that was already yellow. She was carrying a huge paper bag, so full it looked ready to burst. "No." Samantha slowed down. "No, no, no. Ma'am, walk faster. Please, for the love of everything sacred, walk faster." The woman did not walk faster. The light turned red, and the bag chose that exact moment to tear. And the oranges fell. 1, 2, 5, 10, 15, 20 oranges rolling across the asphalt in every possible direction, and a few impossible ones. One car slammed on the brakes, another honked. A third driver yelled something Samantha preferred not to understand. And the woman stood there, frozen in the middle of the street, looking at the oranges as if they had betrayed all her trust. Samantha looked at her watch. 7:54. She looked at the woman. She looked at the runaway oranges. "Samantha, you cannot stop. You are going to be late. You have a son to raise. You have bills to pay. You are not a firefighter for citrus fruit." An orange rolled right in front of her foot. "Oh, for God's sake." She dropped her purse on the sidewalk and rushed into the middle of the street with her arms open, as if she were about to hug all the traffic. "Stop! Everyone stop! Emergency!" The cars stopped. The driver of the first vehicle, a heavy man with the face of someone who had not slept in 3 days, rolled down his window. "Miss, are you crazy?" "Probably," Samantha shouted as she bent down to pick up an orange. "But this lady needs help." Samantha bent down again to pick up 3 oranges at once. She lost her balance, slipped, and landed sitting on the asphalt. "Ouch!" The woman watched her with wide eyes. "My dear, are you all right?" "Wonderful," Samantha answered from the ground, holding the oranges against her chest. "I am living my best moment." Another car honked. "Hey!" A man in a suit shouted from the window. "This is an avenue, not a farmer's market." "And this is vitamin C, sir," Samantha shouted back as she got up. "Do you want to catch a cold? Do you want to get the flu?" The man went silent, clearly confused by the logic. Samantha used the moment to gather more oranges. One was under a pickup truck. She crouched down, stretched out her arm, and hit her head on the bumper. "Ouch! Again!" "Dear, you need to bend your knees," the woman shouted from the sidewalk. "That way you don't strain your back." "Thanks for the tip," Samantha answered, rubbing her forehead. "I'll write that down for the next time I pick up oranges in the middle of traffic." The heavy driver in the first car started laughing. "Miss, you are the craziest thing I've seen on a Monday." "Thank you, I think." An orange rolled under a black sports car with dark windows. Samantha bent down to get it. "Sorry, pretty car," she murmured as she stretched out her arm. "Sorry, driver, I can't see." The car window rolled down. Samantha froze with her hand still stretched under the vehicle. A man was watching her from inside. Dark suit, sharp jaw, eyes that seemed to evaluate every detail of the chaos around him. "Do you need help?" he asked. "No," Samantha answered too quickly. Yes. No. I'm just picking up an orange that rolled under your car, which is very beautiful, by the way, the car. Not that you are not handsome. I'm not saying you are handsome. Not that you are ugly, you are normal. Not normal in a bad way." She stopped, breathed. "I'm going to stop talking now." The man raised an eyebrow, but the corner of his mouth lifted slightly. "That seems like an excellent decision." "Yes, it does. Sorry. Bye." Samantha grabbed the orange, stood up, and ran back toward the woman. There. Samantha placed all the oranges in the woman's arms. "All your oranges? Well, almost all of them. I think 3 escaped forever. 1 was adopted by a storm drain, but the rest are here." The lady looked at her with an expression that mixed gratitude with a little concern for Samantha's sanity. "Dear, you are an angel." "I'm a late employee, that's what I am. But thank you. Are you all right? Do you need anything else?" "I'm perfectly fine, dear. What is your name?" "Samantha Reed." She was already picking her purse up from the ground. "It was a pleasure meeting you. Good luck with whatever you're going to do with the oranges." "I'm going to make juice for my son. He works too much." "What a lucky son. Bye." And Samantha ran off. The left shoe, which had already been complaining before, chose that moment to officially protest. The heel broke completely, as if it were quitting. "No." Samantha looked at her foot. "Don't do this to me. Not today. Any day but today." She pulled off both shoes, shoved them into her purse, and kept running barefoot. "All right, this is good. Running barefoot is faster. Professional athletes train barefoot. I'm practically an athlete now." A desperate, late, and probably unemployed athlete. 1 block later, the company building appeared in front of her, all glass and metal, modern, imposing, and absolutely intimidating. Samantha stopped at the entrance and looked at her watch. 8:05. 5 minutes late. This was her 3rd time being late in 6 months, and the company policy was clear. 3 late arrivals meant termination. All right. She took a deep breath. Maybe no one will notice. Maybe the supervisor is in a good mood. Maybe today is the day the universe decides to be kind to me. She looked at her own reflection in the building's glass. Destroyed hair, blouse with an orange stain, bare and dirty feet. Or maybe not. Samantha put her shoes back on, even with the broken heel, and walked into the building, limping slightly to the left. On the sidewalk farther back, the white-haired lady was watching Samantha disappear through the revolving door. A smile appeared on her lips. She did not know it yet, but that clumsy young woman had just changed the fate of 2 families. At 8:06 in the morning, Samantha Reed entered the building elevator with her heart racing and her feet aching. The broken shoe made her limp to the left. Her hair pointed in at least 4 different directions, and her blouse had an orange stain that looked like a map of Florida. "All right," she murmured to her own reflection in the elevator doors. "You just need to get to your desk without anyone noticing." 5 minutes late. Maybe no one noticed. Maybe Henderson is sick. Maybe she was abducted by aliens during the night. The elevator stopped on the 3rd floor. A man in a suit stepped in, looked at her hair, at her stained blouse, at her broken shoe, and decided to stare at the ceiling for the rest of the ride. The doors opened on the 8th floor. Margaret Henderson was waiting outside. "Miss Reed, in my office. Now." Samantha's heart dropped to her feet.
"Good morning, Mrs. Henderson."
She tried to smile.
"What a beautiful day, isn't it? The sun is shining, the birds are singing."
"Now, Miss Reed." Samantha followed the supervisor down the hallway in silence.
Margaret Henderson's office was exactly how Samantha imagined a movie villain's office would be: cold, organized, with no personal photos or plants or any sign that a human being with feelings worked there. Just a perfect desk, 2 uncomfortable chairs, and a giant clock on the wall. The clock said 8:08. "Sit down." Margaret pointed to the chair. Samantha sat. The chair made a strange noise. "Sorry," she said automatically. "For what?" "For the noise from the chair. It wasn't me. It was her." Margaret stared at her for 3 seconds without blinking. "You know why you're here." "I have a few guesses, but I would love to hear the official version." "You arrived late." "Yes, but if you let me explain—" "This is your 3rd late arrival in 6 months." Margaret opened a folder. Company policy is clear. 3 unjustified late arrivals result in immediate termination. Page 47 of the handbook, paragraph 3, section B. Samantha blinked. "You memorized the section too?" "I memorize everything important." "That is impressive and slightly terrifying." Margaret ignored the comment. "Do you have any documented justification?" "I helped a lady," Samantha said. "An elderly lady. She was crossing the street and her bag tore open and all the oranges fell on the ground and the cars were honking and she was standing in the middle of traffic not knowing what to do. I couldn't just ignore her." Margaret raised one eyebrow. "Oranges?" "Yes." "You're telling me you were late because of oranges?" "When you put it that way, it sounds ridiculous." "It sounds ridiculous because it is ridiculous." "It is not ridiculous." Samantha leaned forward. "She was a 70-year-old woman in the middle of the street. Cars were honking. She could have been hit." "Was she hit?" "No, because I helped her." "Then there was no real danger." "There was potential danger." "Potential does not count." Samantha felt her face getting hot. "Mrs. Henderson, I did the right thing. Any decent person would have done the same." "Any decent person would have called emergency services and gone on with their day." "Because of oranges? You want me to call emergency services because of oranges?" Margaret closed the folder. "Miss Reed, your intentions are irrelevant. What matters are results. You were late. This is your 3rd tardy. The decision has been made." "But—" "You're fired." The word fell in the room like an anvil. Samantha sat frozen in the chair, processing it. "You're firing me," she repeated slowly, "for being 5 minutes late, because I helped an elderly woman." "I'm firing you for repeatedly violating the punctuality policy." "I have a 9-year-old son. I'm a single mother. I need this job." "You should have thought about that before you were late." Samantha felt her eyes burn. She was not going to cry. She was not going to give that woman the satisfaction. "You know what's funny?" she said, her voice shaking but firm. "I spent the whole morning feeling guilty for being late. But now I realize the only thing I did wrong was work for a company that punishes people for being human." Margaret did not answer. Samantha stood up. "And just for the record, you have a piece of lettuce in your teeth. It's been there since I walked in." She walked to the door. "Miss Reed, you have until noon to collect your belongings. I won't need that much time." And she left. 10 minutes later, Samantha crossed the lobby with a cardboard box in her arms, a picture of Jake, a Mother of the Year mug. She did not look back. She pushed the revolving door with her shoulder, stepped out onto the sidewalk, and walked toward the bus stop without looking at anything or anyone.
Minutes later, Patrick Lancaster entered his office and stopped in the doorway. Eleanor Lancaster was sitting in the chair in front of his desk, with a makeshift bundle on her lap full of oranges. as if it were the most normal thing in the world. "Mom, how did you get in here?" "Diane let me in. She is a very nice young woman." "I'm going to have a serious talk with Diane." "No, you are not. She was just being polite." Eleanor lifted the bundle. "I'm going to make juice for you, son. Look how many oranges I saved." Patrick sat down in the chair behind his desk and looked at his mother with the expression of someone who already knew that conversation was going to take a while. "Save them from what?" "From the street. The bag ripped right in the middle of traffic, son." Eleanor began to tell the story with the shine in her eyes of someone who had been waiting all morning to tell it. "The oranges went rolling everywhere, cars honking, drivers yelling, and I just stood there in the middle of the street without knowing what to do." "You stood in the middle of the street?" "For a moment, because then a young woman appeared." Patrick crossed his arms. "What young woman?" "A wonderful young woman. Young, hair completely ruined, shoe making a mouse squeak with every step." Eleanor laughed, just remembering it. "She stopped all the traffic with her arms open. She shouted that it was an emergency. One driver said that this was an avenue and not a market, and she answered that it was vitamin C and asked if he wanted to catch a cold." Patrick stayed quiet. "You needed to see it, son. She picked up every orange from the ground. She fell sitting on the asphalt in the middle of the cars, got up holding the fruit against her chest like it was gold, hit her head on a bumper, and kept going like nothing had happened. All that just to help a stranger." Eleanor wiped away a tear from laughing so much. "And in the end, when she left, the heel of her shoe broke in the middle of the sidewalk. She pulled off both shoes and ran away barefoot. Barefoot, Patrick. Down a sidewalk in Palo Alto, talking to herself." Patrick slowly stood up from his chair. Ruined hair, squeaking shoe, traffic stopped. Vitamin C. The woman who had bent down near his car to pick up an orange and started apologizing to the bumper, who had looked at him through the window with those completely desperate brown eyes, and said a huge mess about him being handsome or normal. It was the same person. "What is her name, Mom?" "Samantha Reed." Eleanor smiled. "A special person, son. You could see it in her eyes. And I think she works here at your company because I saw her going in." Patrick went to the office window and looked down at the street below. And he saw. At the bus stop on the corner, a woman sat on a cardboard box, her head slightly lowered, her hair still messy, waiting. The bus turned the corner in the distance. "Diane," he said over the phone, his voice tense. "Samantha Reed, company employee. Where is she assigned, and what is her status right now?" The answer took 30 seconds. "Mr. Lancaster, Samantha Reed was let go this morning, about 20 minutes ago, by Mrs. Henderson. Third time late in 6 months. She arrived 5 minutes late today." Patrick stood still with the phone in his hand. 5 minutes. She had arrived 5 minutes late because she had been picking up oranges in the middle of traffic to help his mother. And she had been fired for it. Down below, the bus stopped. Samantha picked up the box, got on, and disappeared. "Diane, I want Samantha Reed's complete file on my desk in 1 hour. Reviews, history, everything. And I want to know exactly who authorized this termination." He hung up and kept looking at the empty street. Behind him, Eleanor had stopped laughing. "Patrick." Her voice was different now, serious. "What happened?" He turned to his mother. "Mom, Samantha Reed worked right here, and she was fired this morning for arriving 5 minutes late." Eleanor looked at the oranges in her lap, then at her son. 5 minutes, she repeated slowly. "The 5 minutes when she was helping me in the middle of the street?" "Yes." "At your company?" "Yes." "Because of your rules?" Patrick did not answer. Eleanor stood up. She placed the bundle of oranges on his desk with a dry thud.
Patrick Lancaster, you are going to fix this, and it is not a request. It is an order.
Yes, I will fix it, Mom, he said. Samantha Reed's file was exactly 14 pages long. Patrick read all of them 3 times. 2 excellent performance reviews, 0 customer complaints, no warnings for behavior, only 3 late arrivals in 2 years of work. The first because her son had gotten sick, the second because the bus had broken down, the third because she had stopped traffic to help an unknown elderly woman, who was his mother. Patrick closed the folder and looked out the window. The sun was beginning to set over Palo Alto, and he still could not stop thinking about that woman who apologized to cars. His phone rang. It was his mother.
Patrick, dear, are you going to fix this today?
I'm fixing it now, Mom.
Good, because I made fresh orange juice with the oranges that young woman saved for me. Are you coming to dinner?
I am on my way. 40 minutes later, he parked in front of the house where he had grown up. A 3-story colonial mansion that his mother refused to leave, even though she had lived there alone since his father had passed away 5 years earlier. Eleanor opened the door before he could ring the bell. You took too long? Traffic.
You own a technology company and you cannot fix Palo Alto traffic.
I am working on it, Mom. She pulled him inside and led him to the kitchen, where a huge pitcher of orange juice was waiting on the table.
Sit down. You need vitamins. You look pale.
I am always pale.
Exactly. Vitamins.
Patrick sat down and accepted the glass she pushed toward him. The juice was good, probably the best oranges he had ever tasted in his life. Oranges rescued from the asphalt by a woman who is now unemployed because of a system he himself had created.
Mom, he began.
I read her file. Eleanor sat across from him, her hands around her own cup of tea.
And?
2 years of flawless work, 2 excellent reviews, 0 complaints, 3 late arrivals, the first because her son got sick, the second because the bus broke down.
And the third, Eleanor completed, because she helped me.
Yes. Eleanor was silent for a moment.
She has a child?
Jake, 9 years old.
Single mother?
Yes. Eleanor looked at the glass of juice in her son's hand. Then she looked at him.
Patrick, I raised you to be better than this. Your father built that company with his own hands. He never would have allowed something like this to happen.
I know.
Then act like his son.
Patrick was already standing. I'm going to hire her back.
When?
Tonight. I will call now. Eleanor nodded, satisfied. Then she looked at the untouched glass of juice on the table.
You did not even finish your juice.
I will drink it when I get back.
Patrick.
He stopped at the kitchen door.
When you find this young woman,
Eleanor said, her tone softer now,
tell her the oranges made wonderful juice, and that I am very, very grateful.
Patrick nodded. I will tell her, Mom. At that same moment, 3 kilometers away, Samantha Reed was sitting in the kitchen of her small apartment, trying to explain to her son why she had come home in the middle of the afternoon with a cardboard box and red eyes. Jake Reed was 9 years old, wearing dinosaur pajamas, and had an opinion about absolutely everything. So, let me see if I got this right, he said, sitting in the kitchen chair with his arms crossed. You got fired because you helped an old lady?
It wasn't exactly like that, sweetheart.
Yes, it was. You just said it. I said I was late because I helped a lady, and then I got fired for being late.
Which is the same thing.
It's more complicated than that. It doesn't sound complicated, it sounds unfair.
Well, yes, it is unfair, too. Jake thought for a moment, his arms still crossed with all the seriousness of his 9 years. You should sue them. What? Sue them. That's what people do when they're treated unfairly. I saw it on a show. Jake, I'm not suing anyone. Why not? Because lawsuits cost money and time and energy, and I don't have any of those things to spare. Then you should go there and yell at them. I'm not doing that either. Why? Because yelling doesn't solve anything. Jake stared at her. Mom, you are very passive. I'm not passive. I'm mature. That's the same thing. Samantha rubbed her temples. Jake, please. I had a very hard day. I just need a minute to think about what I'm going to do now. You could sell lemonade. What? Lemonade on the sidewalk. I saw a boy who did that and made like $1,000. That didn't happen. Yes, it did. He was on the internet. Everything on the internet is a lie. Not everything, just 80%. Samantha looked at her son, genuinely impressed. Where did you get that statistic? From the internet. She couldn't help but laugh. The first laugh of the day. Come here, sweetheart. Jake jumped down from the chair and ran into her arms. Samantha hugged him tightly, feeling her eyes burn again. But this time it wasn't from sadness. It was from gratitude. For him. For that hug. For that impossible boy who was the best thing in her life. Everything is going to be okay, Mom, Jake said, his voice muffled against her shoulder. You're the smartest person I know. I'm the only adult you really know. That's not true. I know the neighbor in 302. Mrs. Martinez? Yeah, she gave me cookies last week. That's bribery. It doesn't matter. They were good cookies. Samantha laughed again and kissed the top of his head. Go brush your teeth. Tomorrow I'll start looking for a new job. Can I help make your resume on the computer? Do you know how to make a resume? No, but I know how to use the computer. That's halfway there. Go brush your teeth, Jake. Okay. He ran to the bathroom. Samantha stayed alone in the kitchen looking at the cardboard box with her things from the office. Everything is going to be okay. You've been through worse. You can do this. The phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Samantha Reed? Yes, who is this? This is Diane, executive assistant at Lancaster Technologies. Mr. Patrick Lancaster would like to schedule a meeting with you tomorrow at 9 in the morning. Is that possible? Samantha went silent for a moment. Patrick Lancaster. The CEO? Yes, ma'am. With me? Samantha Reed? The employee who was fired today? There was a pause on the line. Mr. Lancaster did not mention that detail. Oh, well, yes. I was fired at 8 in the morning for being 5 minutes late because of oranges. It's a long story. Another pause. Can you come tomorrow at 9? Samantha looked at the phone as if it had come to life. Yes, I can. Mr. Lancaster will explain in person. Good evening, Mrs. Reed. The call ended. Samantha stood in the middle of the kitchen, the phone still in her hand, trying to process what had just happened. Mom? Jake appeared in the doorway with the toothbrush in his mouth. Who was that? Samantha looked at her son. I think it was destiny. What? Nothing. Go finish brushing your teeth. The next morning at 8:45, Samantha was in the lobby of Lancaster Technologies trying not to have a heart attack. You can do this. You are strong. You are capable. You are not going to faint in the middle of the CEO's office. The security guard looked at her strangely. Sorry, she said. I talked to myself. I noticed. It's a habit, a nervous one from being nervous. I'm nervous.
I noticed that, too. The elevator arrived. Samantha stepped inside. The doors closed. All right. Breathe. He probably wants to apologize, or offer you your job back, or give you $1 million for emotional damages. Stop it, Samantha. You're losing your mind. The elevator stopped on the top floor. An elegant woman in a gray suit was waiting for her. Mrs. Reed? I'm Diane. We spoke last night. Oh, yes. Hi. Nice to meet you. Samantha shook her hand with too much enthusiasm. Sorry. I'm nervous. I noticed. Everyone notices. Diane guided her down a long hallway to a pair of dark wooden double doors. Mr. Lancaster is waiting. Samantha took a deep breath. She walked in. The office was intimidating. Floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of all of Palo Alto. Furniture that probably cost more than her apartment. And behind a huge desk, a man in a suit. The man from the black sports car. The man she had apologized to because of an orange. Miss Reed. He stood up. Please, have a seat. Samantha did not move. It's you, she said. Patrick raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? You. The man from the car, the beautiful car. The orange I picked up from under your car when I apologized to the car and to you and said you were handsome. Normal. She stopped. Breathed. I'm going to stop talking now. The corner of Patrick's mouth lifted slightly. That seems like an excellent decision. That is the same thing you said yesterday. It seems to work with you. Samantha felt her face get warm. She walked to the chair and sat down. The chair did not make a sound. It was a polite chair. Why am I here? She asked directly. Because you were unfairly fired. You know that? I do. Patrick opened a folder on the desk. 2 years of perfect work, 2 excellent reviews, 0 complaints, 3 late arrivals. The first because your son got sick, the second because the bus broke down. And the third, Samantha said slowly, because of oranges. Because of my mother. Samantha blinked. What? Eleanor Lancaster, white hair, blue dress, 23 organic oranges. Samantha opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. The woman with the oranges is your mother. Yes. And you are the CEO of the company that fired me. Yes. And I apologize to your car. Also yes. Samantha covered her face with her hands. Oh, this is a nightmare. Actually, it is an opportunity. She peeked between her fingers. What? Miss Reed, I want to offer you your job back. You were fired unfairly for helping my mother. I would like to correct that mistake. Samantha took her hands away from her face and stayed silent for a long moment. I don't need charity, she finally said. It is not charity. It is justice. It feels like charity. It feels that way because you have too much pride to accept help. I do not have too much pride. Then accept it. She stopped. Is this some kind of trap? Why would it be a trap? Because rich people do not do good things without a reason. Patrick looked at her for a moment. My mother said you are special. She was right. Before Samantha could answer, the office door burst open. Mom! Jake ran in, followed by a completely stunned Diane. Mr. Lancaster, I tried to stop him, but Jake? Samantha jumped to her feet. What are you doing here? The neighbor brought me. Mrs. Martinez, she said you were in trouble. I am not in trouble. You are in the office of a billionaire. That looks like trouble. Patrick watched the scene with an expression somewhere between confusion and amusement. Is this your son? Yes, Jake, 9 years old. No filter. Jake turned to Patrick with the seriousness of an experienced negotiator. Are you the guy who fired my mom? Jake, Samantha hissed. Technically, no, Patrick answered calmly. But I own the company where it happened. Jake looked him up and down, arms crossed. Are you rich? Jake. Reasonably, Patrick answered. Like Batman rich or like third-floor neighbor rich? Jake, stop! More like Batman, Patrick said, clearly amused. Jake nodded, apparently satisfied with the answer. Nice. Can you give my mom her job back? I was doing exactly that when you arrived. Oh. Jake looked at Samantha. Then why do you look so mad? Because you barged into the CEO's office of a billionaire company. I did not barge in. The door was open. You pushed the door. I pushed it hard. That is different. Patrick let out a laugh, a real laugh, with no corporate walls, no CEO formality. Samantha looked at him, surprised. It was not the restrained smile of an executive. It was a real laugh. Miss Reed, he said, still smiling. Do you accept the job or not? Samantha looked at Patrick, at Jake, at the view of Palo Alto through the window. I accept, she finally said. Great, but not because you own a beautiful car. Of course not. And not because your mother makes orange juice. Absolutely not. And definitely not because you have a smile. She stopped. Forget that last part. Jake looked from one to the other with the expression of someone who had just solved a puzzle. You two are very strange. Patrick and Samantha answered at the same time. I know. And in that moment, without either of them realizing it yet, something had begun. Something that went far beyond oranges and jobs and very unusual rehiring. Samantha Reed's first day as the CEO's executive assistant began with her getting into the wrong elevator. This elevator goes to the parking garage, ma'am, the security guard informed her kindly. I knew that. I was just testing. Testing what? The efficiency of the security system? Congratulations, you passed. She got out of the elevator, found the correct one, and stepped inside. Second day of work and you're already making a fool of yourself, she murmured to herself. Wonderful. Award-worthy. The doors opened on the top floor. Diane was waiting for her with a tablet and an expression that clearly said she had heard everything. Good morning, Mrs. Reed. Good morning. I wasn't talking to myself. I didn't say anything. Great, because I wasn't. Of course. Diane guided her to a desk positioned in the reception area outside Patrick's office. A beautiful, organized desk with a new computer and a chair that looked like it had been made by angels. This is your workstation, Diane explained. Mr. Lancaster asked that you organize his schedule, screen calls, and coordinate meetings. I can do that. He also asked that you not enter his office without knocking. Samantha frowned. Why would he ask that? Because yesterday your son pushed the door open very hard. The hinge disagrees. Samantha felt her face grow warm. Is that going to be taken out of my paycheck? Mr. Lancaster said no. He thought it was funny. Funny? His words, not mine. Diane walked away, leaving Samantha alone with her new desk and her old anxiety. All right, she murmured. First real day. You just need not to ruin everything. Easy. Very easy. Patrick's office door opened. Samantha jumped out of her chair as if she had been shocked. Good morning, she said too loudly. Patrick looked at her, slightly surprised. Good morning. Are you all right? Perfectly fine. Why wouldn't I be? You're standing in the middle of the room holding a stapler. Samantha looked at her own hand. There really was a stapler there. She had no idea how it had gotten there. I was organizing. With a stapler? It's a new technique for organization, very popular in Europe. Patrick raised an eyebrow. In Europe? Sweden, specifically. The Swedish organize offices with staplers? They are very innovative people. The corner of Patrick's mouth lifted. I'll pretend I believe that. Please do.
He walked past her toward the hallway. Samantha only let out her breath when he disappeared from sight. The rest of the morning was an exercise in pure survival. Samantha answered 17 calls, transferred 14 correctly, dropped coffee on 3, and discovered that the company phone system had more buttons than the control panel of a space rocket. "Transferring now," she said for the 10th time. "Just one moment. I just have to press this button. Not this one, this other one. Please don't hang up. Please don't—" The call dropped. Wonderful. Patrick's office door opened. "Samantha?" She jumped again. "Yes?" Mr. Morrison's call dropped. "I know. He called 3 times. I know that too. He's a little irritated. I imagine he is." Patrick came closer to her desk and looked at the phone, then at her. "Do you want me to teach you how to use it?" "You? The CEO? Are going to teach me how to use the phone?" "I know how to use the phone. But shouldn't you be doing more important things?" "Transferring calls is important too when the investor doesn't get an answer." He leaned over the desk to reach the phone. Samantha held her breath. He smelled like something expensive, probably a cologne that cost more than her rent. "To transfer, you press this button here," he explained. "Then you dial the extension. Then you press this other one. Simple. Simple. Are you paying attention?" "Completely." She was not. She was paying attention to his jaw and his eyes, and the fact that he was approximately 1 foot from her face. "Samantha?" "Yes?" "Which button do you press first?" Silence. "The red one?" she guessed. "The red one ends the call." "Oh." Patrick straightened up, and Samantha finally managed to breathe. "I'll ask Diane to train you." "That would be great. Excellent. Wonderful." He went back into his office. Samantha let her head fall onto the desk. "You are pathetic," she murmured against the wood. Across the floor, watching the scene through the glass walls, Margaret Henderson squeezed a pen so hard that her fingers turned white. The woman she had fired 2 days earlier was now working directly for the CEO, sitting in the reception area outside his office, talking to him, making him smile. It was unacceptable. "Enjoying the view, Mrs. Henderson?" Margaret turned around. Diane was standing behind her with a neutral expression. "I was just passing by." "Passing by and stopping to watch?" "Is there a problem with that?" "None. I just thought it was curious." Diane walked away. Margaret looked back at Samantha, who was now trying to answer another call and was clearly pressing all the wrong buttons. That woman was a disaster. And yet Patrick Lancaster had brought her back. Why? Margaret was going to find out. And when she did, she was going to use that information. Because nobody went over Margaret Henderson's head without consequences. Nobody. In the outer office, completely unaware of the plans being formed against her, Samantha finally managed to transfer a call correctly. "I did it!" she celebrated out loud. Patrick's office door opened. "You hung up on the Japanese investor." Samantha's smile died. "Oh. He represents $200 million. Oh. Is O all you have to say?"
Samantha thought for a moment. Sorry? Patrick stared at her for 3 seconds. Then he shook his head and went back into the office. But before he closed the door, Samantha could have sworn she saw him smiling. Or maybe it was just her mind imagining things that did not exist. That was probably all it was. The video conference with the investors from Seattle was scheduled for 3 in the afternoon. Samantha had reviewed the agenda 7 times, tested the connection 4 times, and organized the pens on the table by size, because when she got nervous, she needed to organize something. Patrick walked into the conference room, adjusting his tie. Is everything ready?
Everything is ready. Connection tested, presentation loaded, water on the table. She hesitated. And the pens organized by size. By size? I get nervous and organize things. It's a process. Patrick looked at the pens lined up with perfect precision. Then he looked at her without saying anything. The investors began appearing on the screen. 4 serious faces in 4 different squares, expensive suits, expressions of people who had no time to waste. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Patrick greeted them. Thank you for joining us. Samantha positioned herself quietly in the corner of the room, notepad in hand, ready to write down any important point. The meeting started well. Patrick presented the quarter's numbers with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what he was doing. The investors asked questions. Patrick answered. Everything professional. Everything controlled. Until Samantha's laptop beeped. She looked at the screen. An incoming video call. From Jake's school. With her heart racing, Samantha accepted the call in the corner of the screen, immediately putting it on mute. Jake's face appeared. But he was not at school. He was in their apartment, wearing dinosaur pajamas, clearly not realizing he was on mute. Samantha gestured frantically for him to wait. Jake did not wait. He started talking. And talking. And talking. Samantha tried to close the window. She clicked the wrong button. Jake's call went to the main screen, the screen being shared with the Seattle investors. The face of a 9-year-old boy in dinosaur pajamas appeared in front of 4 multimillionaire executives. Mom, you forgot to leave money for pizza! Mrs. Martinez said I could stay at her house, but she only has soup, and I don't want soup! The silence in the conference room was deafening. Patrick looked at the screen. The investors looked at the screen. Samantha wanted the floor to open up and swallow her whole. Jake, she whispered desperately. Jake, hang up. Why are you whispering? Are you in a meeting? Jake moved closer to the camera. Hi, meeting people! One of the investors waved back, apparently by reflex. Jake, please. Is your boss there? The rich Batman? Patrick choked. Rich Batman? One of the investors asked. That's what my mom calls him, Jake explained cheerfully. She said he's like Batman, but with fewer bats and more meetings. I never said that, Samantha protested. Yes, you did. Yesterday, when you were talking to yourself in the kitchen. I do not talk to myself in the kitchen. Yes, you do. You talk to yourself everywhere. Patrick covered his mouth with his hand. His shoulders were shaking. Jake, Samantha tried one more time, her voice firm. I need you to hang up. Now. Okay, but what about the pizza? I'll send the money later. Pinky promise? Jake! Okay. Bye, Mom. Bye, rich people. Bye, Batman. Jake's screen disappeared. The silence that followed lasted about 3 seconds. Samantha could not look at anyone. The entire meeting had just met her son in dinosaur pajamas and found out she called her boss Rich Batman. So, the older investor finally said, Rich Batman. That is new. Patrick cleared his throat. I actually prefer Bruce Wayne. The gray-haired investor, a man with white hair and sharp eyes, began to laugh. A real laugh, loud and sincere. Lancaster, this is the most entertaining meeting I have had in 20 years of work. I am glad you enjoyed it. Who is this woman? Patrick looked at Samantha, who was still trying to blend into the back wall. My assistant, Samantha Reed. The mother of the boy in the dinosaur pajamas? The same one. The gray-haired investor waved at her with a genuine smile. Miss Reed, your son is a treasure. He is a disaster, Samantha murmured. The best ones usually are.
The meeting continued. The numbers were presented. The questions were answered. And in the end, all 4 investors confirmed interest in increasing their stakes in the company. When the screens went dark, silence returned to the room. This time, it was different, less heavy. I am so sorry, Samantha said immediately. I do not know how this happened. I clicked the wrong button and, Samantha, he was there. And I tried to close it, but then it showed up for everyone and, Samantha. She stopped. Patrick was looking at her, not with anger, not with the CEO expression she expected. Rich Batman? He said. I can explain. Please do not explain. I prefer Jake's version. He exaggerates a lot. He said you talk to yourself in the kitchen. That is partly true. Partly? Sometimes it is in the bathroom, too. Patrick laughed. A real laugh, without any corporate wall between them. Samantha, Mr. Williams has not laughed in years. Today he laughed because of Jake. That was the best meeting I have ever had. You are being sarcastic. I am being completely honest. Samantha did not know what to say. She looked at him for a moment, trying to understand if it was real. So I am not fired? On the contrary. I'm thinking about giving Jake a badge. Corporate Entertainment Consultant. Please do not do that. It is a little funny. It is a little, she admitted, with a smile she could not hold back. Patrick's phone rang. He looked at the screen and frowned slightly. My mother. He answered. Hi, Mom. Now is not a good time. Samantha began gathering her materials from the table, pretending not to hear. But she heard Patrick's tone change, a mix of patience and resignation that clearly came from years of practice. Tomorrow, at the park? He looked at Samantha. No, Mom, I do not think... Mom, listen. I am not going to... Fine. Bye. He hung up with the expression of someone who had just lost a battle he had never had a chance of winning. What happened? Samantha asked. Patrick put the phone in his pocket. My mother wants to meet you. And Jake. Tomorrow. At the park. Samantha stopped what she was doing. The orange lady wants to meet me? Technically, you two have already met. In the middle of traffic chaos, that does not count. For my mother, it counts. Samantha was silent for a moment, looking at him. Why do I have the feeling that saying no is not an option? Because you have known my mother for less than 48 hours, and you already understand exactly how she works. Samantha took a deep breath. Tomorrow she was going to see the woman again, because of whom she had been fired and rehired. Her billionaire boss's mother. At the park. With Jake. What time? She asked. Patrick had the good sense not to smile. 10 in the morning. Saturday morning. Samantha changed clothes 3 times before leaving the house. Jake watched her from the bedroom door with a bowl of cereal in his hand. Mom, It is just a park. It is not just a park. It is a meeting with my boss's mother, who is also the little old orange lady. Exactly. And is Patrick going to be there? Samantha picked up a blouse, looked at it, and threw it back on the bed. Yes. You are nervous because you like him. Samantha froze. I do not like him. Yes, you do. No, I do not. Mom, you changed clothes 3 times to go to a park. I just want to make a good impression. On his mother. Yes. Because you like him. Jake, go put on your sneakers. Okay. He shrugged, completely pleased with himself. But you like him. The Palo Alto City Park was beautiful that Saturday morning. Perfectly trimmed trees, families walking around, the sun filtering through the leaves. And on the bench near the lake, 2 figures were waiting. Eleanor Lancaster waved as soon as she saw them, with the wide smile of someone who had been waiting for that moment. Patrick was beside her. No suit, jeans and a casual shirt. Samantha noticed it immediately and decided it was completely irrelevant information. It was not. Here we go, she murmured softly. Eleanor stood up and opened her arms before Samantha even got close. Samantha, my orange heroine. Before she could react, Samantha was being hugged with surprising strength for a 70-year-old woman. Hello, Mrs. Lancaster. Eleanor, call me Eleanor. She pulled back and looked at Jake with shining eyes. And this must be the famous Jake. Famous? Jake asked, clearly interested in the title. Patrick told me about the video conference. Oh, that. Jake smiled with no sign of regret. I just wanted pizza. And did you get it? I did. My mom sent the money right away. I was busy, Samantha corrected. You were red like a tomato, Jake said. Eleanor burst out. Patrick came closer. Samantha looked at him for a second and then looked away. Hi, he said. Hi, she answered. Jake looked from one to the other with the expression of someone watching something very obvious happen right in front of him. Eleanor noticed the same thing. She exchanged a quick look with the imaginary grandson she had clearly already adopted in her mind. Jake, how about we take a walk around the lake? She suggested. I want you to tell me more about this pizza story. Can I, Mom? You can, Samantha said, grateful for the distraction. Eleanor and Jake walked off toward the water, leaving Samantha and Patrick alone on the bench. The silence lasted a few seconds, but it was a different silence from the office, less formal, more dangerous. Your son is a force of nature, Patrick said. He has no filter at all. Sorry about Rich Batman. I've been called worse things. Like what? My former partner once called me a corporate robot. Is that worse than Rich Batman? Much worse. Batman at least has personality. Samantha before she could stop herself. Patrick smiled, and this time it wasn't the controlled smile of a CEO. It was something else. They stayed silent for a moment, looking at the lake, where Eleanor and Jake were already feeding ducks with leftover cookies Eleanor had pulled from her pocket, as if it were completely normal to leave the house with cookies for ducks. Your mother is amazing, Samantha said. She likes you very much. She met me in the middle of traffic chaos, and that was enough for her. My mother has always known how to judge people much better than I do. Samantha looked at him. And you? How do you judge people? Patrick stayed silent for a moment, as if the question had come from an angle he had not expected. By performance files, he said. By the numbers. By results. And what does my file say? That you are the best employee Henderson ever fired. Samantha couldn't help, but that's not hard. She has fired a lot of good people. I know. Patrick's tone changed slightly. I should have paid more attention to that before. There was something in that sentence that went beyond the professional. A genuine responsibility. Samantha looked at him and saw, for a moment, that behind the CEO, there was a man trying to do better. "You're correcting it now?" she said simply. "I'm trying." Near the lake, Jake said something that made Eleanor. The two of them turned to look. Jake was gesturing dramatically, clearly in the middle of a story, and Eleanor was listening with the full attention of someone who had found her favorite storyteller. "They got along well," Samantha observed. "My mother needed someone like that. Since my father passed away 5 years ago, the house has been too quiet for her." Samantha looked at him. "I'm sorry. She's strong, but too much quiet is not good for anyone." He watched his mother for a moment. "Your son brought noise to her afternoon. She'll talk about this for weeks." Samantha stayed silent, feeling the weight of those words in a way she had not expected. There was something very human there, something that performance files and mahogany desks and expensive suits could not hide. Patrick Lancaster was a lonely person. She had not noticed it until that moment. But he was. When Eleanor and Jake came back, Jake was carrying 3 stones he had picked up by the lake, and Eleanor was carrying the smile of someone who had just spent the best hour of her week. "Mrs. Eleanor knows how to make paper boats," Jake announced. "With anything. She made one with a grocery receipt." "It's the essential skill," Eleanor confirmed seriously. "She also knows the name of every duck." "Only some of them," Eleanor corrected. "The brown one with the white spot, I call him Aristotle. He's the smartest." "How do you know he's smart?" "Because he never fights for the bread. He waits for the others to fight and takes what's left." Jake considered that for a moment. "Is that wisdom or laziness?" "With the right people, it's the same thing." Patrick looked at his mother with an expression that mixed affection and resignation. "Should we get some ice cream?" Eleanor suggested, as if the idea had just come to her, although Samantha had the clear feeling it had been planned from the beginning. "Yes," Jake answered before any adult could speak. They walked together to the ice cream shop in the park, and when they started walking, Patrick's hand accidentally brushed against Samantha's hand. Neither one of them pulled away. Jake, walking ahead with Eleanor, looked back discreetly. Eleanor had already seen it. The two exchanged a knowing look. "I told you she liked him," Jake whispered. "I know, sweetheart," Eleanor whispered back. "I know." That night, while putting Jake to bed, Samantha could still feel the ghost of that touch on her hand. "Mom?" Jake asked, already almost asleep. "Yes?" "Patrick is really nice. Not just rich." Samantha stood still in the bedroom doorway. "Yes, he is. You should give him a chance, Jake." "Good night, Mom." He closed his eyes before she could answer. Samantha stayed in the doorway for a long moment looking at her son, thinking about oranges, about parks, about hands that touch by accident and no one pulls away. She was starting to feel things she had not planned to feel, and that, she knew, was both the best and the most complicated news in the world. Margaret Henderson had a plan. It was not out of anger. At least, that was what she told herself while she watched Samantha Reed through the glass wall of the hallway, sitting in the CEO's waiting area as if she had always belonged in that place. It was a matter of principle. 12 years. She had given 12 years to that company. She had built the department from nothing, trained teams, kept standards when no one else cared about standards, and now a woman who arrived late and spilled coffee on Japanese investors was sitting 3 yards from the most powerful man in the building, making him smile. Margaret did not smile at Patrick Lancaster. She delivered results.
There was a difference. She opened the folder on the desk and started taking notes. Samantha's arrival times, missed calls, documented mistakes, anything she could use. She would need more than that, she knew, but she had patience. In the waiting area, completely unaware of the plans being made against her, Samantha was on the phone trying to reschedule one of Patrick's meetings with a partner from San Francisco. "Yes, I understand the time is inconvenient," she said carefully. "But Mr. Lancaster has a prior commitment that cannot be rescheduled. Could we try Thursday at—" Patrick's office door opened. He appeared with his tie slightly loosened and a folder under his arm, with the expression of someone who had just come out of a long meeting. Samantha raised one finger, asking for a second. He stood in the doorway, waiting. "Perfect. Thursday at 2. Thank you, Mr. Collins." She hung up and turned to Patrick. "I rescheduled it for Thursday. He was not happy, but he accepted." "How did you convince him?" "I said you had an unavoidable commitment." "What commitment?" "None, but now you have to invent one by Thursday." Patrick stayed silent for a second. "That is technically a corporate lie." "It is technically a creative solution." She picked up the notepad. Mr. Morrison called again. This time I transferred him correctly. "This time?" "Out of 3 attempts, I got 1 right. Statistically, I am improving." Patrick looked at her with that expression she still did not quite know how to classify. It was not the CEO expression. It was something else, more direct, more personal. "You are doing well," he said. Samantha blinked. "Really?" "Really. Diane told me you reorganized the entire filing system this morning. It was a mess. Documents from 2019 mixed with documents from 2023. Someone needed to do it." "No one had done it in 4 years." "I noticed." Patrick walked over to her desk and placed the folder on top of it. It was not an authoritative gesture. It was natural, as if that space was already familiar to him. "There is something I need to ask you." "Go ahead." "On Friday, there is a dinner with the board. I need you to coordinate the logistics, reservation, menu, confirmation of who will be there. It is an important dinner." "I can do that." "There are 12 people. Some have dietary restrictions that are in the system. The restaurant is Maison on Emerson Street. They already know the company." "All right, I'll take care of it today." Patrick nodded. He stood there for 1 second longer than necessary. "Samantha?" She looked up. "Thank you. For the park on Saturday. My mother has not stopped talking about Jake since then." Samantha felt a gentle warmth in her chest. It was not the usual nervousness. It was something else. "Jake, too. He asked if Mrs. Eleanor could be the name of the duck he wants to adopt." Patrick took a second to process that. "She'll love knowing that." "I suspected she would." He went back into the office. The door closed with a soft click. Samantha stood still for a moment, looking at the closed door. Across the floor, Margaret Henderson had stopped taking notes and was watching the scene with full attention. There was nothing wrong with what she had just seen. A professional conversation, a thank you, nothing concrete. But there was something there that Margaret recognized. There was interest. And interest was enough to begin. On Thursday morning, 2 days before the board dinner, Samantha arrived at work and found an envelope on top of her desk. No sender, no name, just the envelope. She opened it. Inside, there was a single printed sheet, a table, arrival times, hers. 3 weeks of detailed records, with the minutes late calculated beside each date. Small delays, most of them. 2 minutes on a Monday, 4 on a Wednesday. Once 7 minutes because the elevator had gotten stuck on the 4th floor with her inside. At the bottom of the page, a single handwritten line. Patterns do not change. Samantha stared at the paper for a long moment. There was no signature. There didn't need to be. She folded the sheet, put it back in the envelope, and kept it in the drawer. She said nothing to Patrick,
Not yet. But in that moment, she understood that what had started as an unfair firing was far from over. Margaret Henderson had not given up. She was just waiting for the right moment. The board dinner on Friday went without any visible problem. Samantha had coordinated every detail. Reservation confirmed, menus adjusted for every dietary restriction, transportation organized for the members coming from out of town. Patrick had arrived at the restaurant and found everything exactly as it needed to be. He had looked at her in that moment with an expression she could not completely understand. It was not surprise. It was something closer to recognition. The dinner lasted 3 hours. Samantha stayed available by phone the entire time in case anything unexpected happened. Nothing unexpected happened. At 11 at night, when she was already home with Jake sleeping in the next room, the phone rang. Patrick. She answered. "It went well," he said, without introduction. "I'm glad. Mr. Davies asked who organized it. I said it was you." "What did he say?" "He said it was the best logistics the board has had in 2 years." Samantha was silent for a second. "That's good." "It's very good." A brief pause. "Were you monitoring the phone all night?" "It was my responsibility." "You could have delegated." "I could have. But I preferred to do it myself." Patrick was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, lower, more direct. "Why do you do that?" "Do what?" "Work like that, with that level of care, even when no one is watching." Samantha looked toward the dark room where Jake was sleeping. "Because that is what I want my son to see," she said simply. "That things worth doing deserve real effort, no matter who is watching." The silence that followed was different from all the other silences they had shared. Heavier. Fuller. "Good night, Samantha," Patrick finally said. "Good night." She hung up and stood still in the dark living room for a moment. Something was changing between them. Slowly, without rush, without either of them having named it yet. But it was changing. And in the office drawer, Margaret Henderson's envelope was waiting. The following Monday, Margaret Henderson walked into the Human Resources Department with a folder and a smile that did not reach her eyes. "I need to file a formal complaint," she announced. The Human Resources employee, a bored man named Greg, looked at her over his glasses. "Against whom?" "Samantha Reed, Mr. Lancaster's executive assistant." "What is the complaint?" "Inappropriate conduct, personal relationship with a superior, use of influence to obtain professional benefits." Greg blinked. "Do you have proof of that?" Margaret opened the folder with the precision of someone who had rehearsed that moment. "I have photos." 3 floors above, Samantha knew none of this. She was in the reception area organizing Patrick's schedule for the week when Diane approached with an expression Samantha still had not fully learned how to read. Too neutral to be casual. "Good morning, Diane." "Good morning." Diane placed the document on the desk. "Confirmation for Tuesday lunch with Mr. Park? He asked to move it up 30 minutes. I'll reschedule it with Patrick." "I already rescheduled it. I just needed to let you know." "How are you?" Samantha looked up. "Fine. Why do you ask?" "No reason." Diane turned to leave, then stopped. "Samantha, if anything strange happens this week, let me know." "Strange how?" "Anything." She left before Samantha could ask more. Samantha stared at the empty hallway for a moment. Then she opened the drawer and looked at the envelope that was still there, folded, right where she had put it the week before. Patterns do not change. She closed the drawer. The formal complaint reached Patrick on Tuesday morning, through the company's in-house lawyer. He read the document once, twice, closed the folder, and stayed silent for a long moment, looking out the window. Photos. Margaret had photos from the park. Her and Samantha walking side by side, one hand brushing against the other. Jake in the background, Eleanor in the background. A completely innocent Saturday afternoon turned into evidence of inappropriate conduct. Patrick stood up and opened the office door. Samantha. She looked up from the schedule. Could you come in here for a moment? She went in, sat on the chair in front of the desk. Patrick remained standing, which she noticed immediately. He never stood when he had a difficult conversation. He sat, controlled, within the formality his position required. He placed the folder on the desk and pushed it toward her. Samantha opened it, read it. Her face did not change while she read, but her hands became slightly stiller on the paper. Photos from the park, she said when she finished. Yes. She was following us. Or hired someone to do it. We still do not know. Samantha slowly closed the folder and pushed it back. What does this mean for me? Patrick crossed his arms. It means there will be an internal investigation. Mandatory protocol when a formal complaint is filed. I have no way to prevent that without making it look like I am protecting you. He paused. Which would make her accusation stronger, not weaker. I understand. Samantha, I need you to know that I do not believe anything written in there. I know. And that I am going to... Patrick? She interrupted him with a calmness he clearly was not expecting. I understand how this works. The investigation will happen. I will cooperate with everything that is asked. And the truth will come out because there is nothing to hide. He looked at her for a moment. Are you okay? I am angry, she said directly. But I am okay. They are two different things. Patrick nodded slowly. There is one more thing. Tell me. She also filed a record of your small delays over the last few weeks. 2 minutes, 4 minutes. Compiled in a table. Samantha opened the pocket of her purse and took out the folded envelope. She placed it on the desk without saying anything. Patrick looked at the envelope, then at her. When did you receive this? Last week. Thursday morning, it was on my desk when I arrived. Why did you not tell me? Because it was not urgent yet. She met his eyes. And because I wanted to solve my own problems before bringing them to you. Patrick stayed silent. That is not weakness, he finally said. But it also does not need to be done alone. Samantha did not respond to that, but something in her heard it. The internal investigation began on Wednesday. Greg from Human Resources conducted the interviews with the permanent expression of someone who would rather be anywhere else. Samantha answered every question clearly and objectively. Yes, she had gone to the park on Saturday. Yes, Patrick was there. Eleanor Lancaster, his mother, was also there, and she had specifically asked to meet her after the orange incident. And Jake, her 9-year-old son. A family afternoon, she said simply. Would you consider that a personal meeting? Greg asked, clearly reading from a script. I would consider it a thank you from my boss's mother because I helped her in the middle of traffic. The same reason I am employed today. Greg wrote something down. Is there any relationship of a personal nature between you and Mr. Lancaster? There is a professional relationship of mutual respect. Is that all? That is all. Greg closed the notepad. Samantha stood up to leave. Mrs. Reed. She stopped. It is not personal, he said with the voice of someone who was apologizing without being able to apologize. I know, Greg. She left. Patrick conducted his own investigation in parallel. Not about Samantha, about Margaret. He asked the IT department for a complete report of access to the internal systems over the last 3 months. It took 2 days to arrive. When it did, Patrick read every line carefully. Margaret had accessed Samantha's time clock file 14 times in the last 3 weeks. She had requested copies of call records. She had checked the floor's camera system twice outside business hours. She was not a diligent employee applying company policy. It was a campaign. Patrick closed the report and stared at the city outside. 12 years. Margaret had been with the company for 12 years. She had built real things, delivered real results. And at some point, somewhere along the way, she had decided that keeping her position mattered more than anything else, including the truth. He picked up the phone. Diane, I need you to schedule a meeting with legal for early tomorrow morning. And I want the complete history of complaints filed by Mrs. Henderson over the last 5 years. How many complaints, Mr. Lancaster? All of them. On Thursday night, Samantha was at home helping Jake with his homework when the phone rang. Patrick. Jake raised his eyes from his notebook. Is it the rich Batman? Jake. What? I asked politely. Samantha answered and went to the living room. Hi. Hi. Patrick's voice sounded different, heavier. I wanted to tell you before you heard it another way. What happened? Legal finished the review this afternoon, and T gave me the access report. Samantha, Margaret had been systematically monitoring you for at least 3 weeks, even before filing the formal complaint. Samantha stayed silent. The envelope was just the beginning, she finally said. Yes. What happens now? She will be called into a formal meeting tomorrow, with legal and HR present. I will handle it personally. And the complaint against me? It will be closed. Completely. Samantha, I need to apologize to you. For what? Because this happened in my company, under my leadership. Someone used the system I created to go after another person I brought back. That is my responsibility. Samantha stood in the dark living room for a moment, hearing the genuine seriousness in his voice. You are correcting it now, she said. They were the same words she had said at the park, but this time they carried a different weight. Patrick was silent for a second. I am trying. From the bedroom, Jake's voice reached her. Mom, I do not know how to do this problem. I am coming, honey. Is it the rich Batman? Jake! She heard Patrick softly on the other end of the line. Go help him, Patrick said. We will talk tomorrow. Patrick? Yes? Thank you for calling me. Good night, Samantha. She hung up and went back to the kitchen, where Jake was waiting with his pencil in his hand, and the expression of someone who had heard everything and was pretending he had not. Was that Patrick? He asked innocently. It was. Is he okay? He is. You talked for a long time. Jake, what is the problem? He lowered his eyes to the notebook with a smile he tried to hide and could not. Samantha sat down beside her son, her heart a little lighter than it had been before the call. Tomorrow was going to be a difficult day. She knew that. But there was something comforting about knowing she was no longer facing it alone. The meeting was scheduled for 8 in the morning. Patrick arrived before everyone else.
He stood in the empty conference room for a few minutes, looking out at the city. It was early. The sun was still low over Palo Alto, the light cutting across the buildings in long angles. He had led difficult meetings before, dismissals of partners, restructurings that affected hundreds of people, decisions that cost him years-long professional relationships. But there was something about that morning that felt different. 12 years was a long time, and he knew, better than anyone, that Margaret had built real things in that company. The problem was not what she had built. It was what she had destroyed along the way.
Margaret had accessed Samantha's time clock file 14 times in the last 3 weeks. She had requested copies of call records. She had checked the floor's camera system twice outside business hours. She was not a diligent employee applying company policy. It was a campaign. Patrick closed the report and stared at the city outside. 12 years. Margaret had been with the company for 12 years. She had built real things, delivered real results. And at some point, somewhere along the way, she had decided that keeping her position mattered more than anything else, including the truth. He picked up the phone.
Diane, I need you to schedule a meeting with legal for early tomorrow morning. And I want the complete history of complaints filed by Mrs. Henderson over the last 5 years.
How many complaints, Mr. Lancaster?
All of them.
On Thursday night, Samantha was at home helping Jake with his homework when the phone rang. Patrick. Jake raised his eyes from his notebook. Is it the rich Batman?
Jake.
What? I asked politely. Samantha answered and went to the living room. Hi.
Hi.
Patrick's voice sounded different, heavier.
I wanted to tell you before you heard it another way.
What happened?
Legal finished the review this afternoon, and T gave me the access report. Samantha, Margaret had been systematically monitoring you for at least 3 weeks, even before filing the formal complaint.
Samantha stayed silent. The envelope was just the beginning, she finally said.
Yes.
What happens now?
She will be called into a formal meeting tomorrow, with legal and HR present. I will handle it personally.
And the complaint against me?
It will be closed. Completely.
Samantha, I need to apologize to you.
For what?
Because this happened in my company, under my leadership. Someone used the system I created to go after another person I brought back. That is my responsibility. Samantha stood in the dark living room for a moment, hearing the genuine seriousness in his voice. You are correcting it now, she said. They were the same words she had said at the park, but this time they carried a different weight. Patrick was silent for a second. I am trying. From the bedroom, Jake's voice reached her. Mom, I do not know how to do this problem. I am coming, honey. Is it the rich Batman? Jake! She heard Patrick softly on the other end of the line. Go help him, Patrick said. We will talk tomorrow. Patrick? Yes? Thank you for calling me. Good night, Samantha. She hung up and went back to the kitchen, where Jake was waiting with his pencil in his hand, and the expression of someone who had heard everything and was pretending he had not. Was that Patrick? He asked innocently. It was. Is he okay? He is. You talked for a long time. Jake, what is the problem? He lowered his eyes to the notebook with a smile he tried to hide and could not. Samantha sat down beside her son, her heart a little lighter than it had been before the call.
Tomorrow was going to be a difficult day. She knew that. But there was something comforting about knowing she was no longer facing it alone. The meeting was scheduled for 8 in the morning. Patrick arrived before everyone else. He stood in the empty conference room for a few minutes, looking out at the city. It was early. The sun was still low over Palo Alto, the light cutting across the buildings in long angles. He had led difficult meetings before, dismissals of partners, restructurings that affected hundreds of people, decisions that cost him years-long professional relationships. But there was something about that morning that felt different. 12 years was a long time, and he knew, better than anyone, that Margaret had built real things in that company. The problem was not what she had built. It was what she had destroyed along the way.
I want it on record that I formally disagree with everything presented here. It will be on record, the lawyer confirmed. She walked to the door. She stopped with her hand on the doorknob. Patrick? He looked at her. You are going to regret mixing things. Maybe, he said, but I will not regret doing what is right. Margaret left. The door closed. The lawyer began gathering the documents. The HR members exchanged a discreet look. Patrick stayed there, looking at the closed door for a moment. 12 years. He took a deep breath and turned toward the window. Samantha heard about it from Diane an hour later. She was in the waiting area when Diane approached and placed a coffee on the table without being asked. Samantha looked up. Diane subtly nodded toward the hallway. Margaret Henderson was walking with a cardboard box in her arms, head held high, steps controlled. The security guard followed her at a respectful distance. The two of them crossed the hallway and disappeared into the elevator. Samantha stared at the empty space for a moment. There was something strange about it. Not satisfaction, not relief. Something more complex. She knew that scene too well. The cardboard box, the hallway, the elevator going down. That had been her 3 weeks earlier. Are you all right? Diane asked quietly. I am, Samantha answered. And it was true, although it was not simple. Patrick appeared in the waiting area shortly after noon. He did not say anything right away. He stood in the doorway of his own office, his tie slightly loosened, with the expression of someone who had been through a long morning. Samantha looked up from the screen. How are you? She asked. He stopped. The question had clearly come from an angle he had not expected. People did not usually ask how he was after difficult meetings. They expected reports, decisions, next steps. It was necessary, he finally said. But it wasn't easy. Those two things are rarely the same. Patrick looked at her for a second. No, he agreed. They rarely are. He went into the office. The door stayed half open, which Samantha noticed was different from usual. She turned back to the screen. But the coffee Diane had left got cold without her drinking it, because her thoughts would not stay still. The complaint had been filed away. Margaret was gone. The chapter had closed. But something Margaret had said in the conference room. She had not been there, but Diane had heard part of it through the door and told her carefully. Stayed with her. You are going to regret mixing things. Samantha looked at the half-open door of Patrick's office. There was a very clear line between what was real and what was dangerous, between what she felt and what was sensible to feel, between a story that made sense and one she could not afford to believe. She was a single mother. She had a 9-year-old son who depended on her. She had just come out of being fired, an investigation, 3 weeks of constant pressure. And Patrick Lancaster was the owner of the company where she worked. There was a huge difference between someone being kind and someone being a sensible choice. She knew that. The question was whether she would be able to keep knowing it. That afternoon, when the office was almost empty and most of the employees had already gone home, Patrick appeared in the waiting area with his coat over his arm and his keys in his hand. "Still here?" he asked. "Finishing the weekly report? You can finish it tomorrow. I'd rather close it out today." He stood there for a moment, looking at her with that expression she had learned to recognize, but still did not fully know how to name. "Samantha." "Yes?" "I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly, without thinking about the job or the company or anything else." She looked up from the screen and faced him. "You can ask." "Would you be willing to have dinner with me? Not here, not work-related. Just dinner." The silence lasted a few seconds. Samantha thought about everything she had thought earlier. The clear line, what was sensible, what she could or could not afford to feel. And then she thought about Jake saying you should give him a chance with that absolute 9-year-old certainty that did not know half words. "Yes," she said. Patrick did not smile right away. He stayed silent for a second, as if the answer had come more directly than he expected. Then he smiled. "Friday?" "Friday." He nodded and walked toward the elevator. Samantha turned back to the screen. The weekly report took another 40 minutes to finish. She did not remember a single detail of what she wrote. On Friday afternoon, Jake found out about the dinner. Not because Samantha had told him. She was saving that information for the right moment, which clearly had not arrived yet. But Jake was 9 years old and had a radar for unspoken things that worked better than any professional equipment. "You are too dressed up for a Friday night," he observed from the couch, without taking his eyes off the video game. "I always get dressed up." "Not like that. You changed clothes twice." "I changed once. Twice, I counted." Samantha stopped in front of the hallway mirror and decided not to have that conversation. "Mrs. Martinez will stay with you until 10. There is dinner in the fridge, second shelf. Do not convince her to order pizza." "I do not convince anyone of anything. Jake. Okay? No pizza." "Is it with Patrick?" Samantha grabbed her purse. "Good night, son." "That is a yes," Jake said to the video game. The restaurant was small, discreet, on a quiet street a few blocks from downtown. It was not the kind of place a CEO chose to be seen. It was the kind of place someone chose when they wanted a real conversation. Samantha arrived 2 minutes early. Patrick was already there, standing near the entrance without a suit. Dark pants, simple shirt. The same person, but different in a way she could not immediately name. Less CEO, more Patrick. "You got here first," she said. "I always arrive early." "Is that a corporate habit or a personal trait?" "Both, probably." He opened the door. "After you." The restaurant had low lighting, well-spaced tables, and the sound of conversation that did not need to compete with loud music. Exactly the kind of place where it was possible to truly hear what the other person was saying. They sat down. The waiter brought the menu. Samantha looked at the options and realized she was truly hungry for the first time in days. "How did Jake react when you left?" Patrick asked after the waiter walked away. "He pretended he did not know where I was going, and then confirmed his own theory by himself." "How did he confirm it?" "He said I was too dressed up for a Friday night." Patrick laughed. He is not wrong. Samantha looked up from the menu. Was that a compliment? It was an observation, but it was also a compliment. She looked back at the menu to hide her smile. The conversation flowed in a way Samantha had not expected. There was no meeting to coordinate. There was no schedule to manage. There was no professional version of either of them sitting at that table. It was just her and Patrick, and the gradual discovery that there was much more beneath the surface than work had shown. He had grown up in that city, studied away, returned to build the company his father had started as a small consulting firm in the 90s. There was pride in that, she could tell, but not the simple kind, the kind that comes mixed with responsibility and with the weight of continuing something someone else had started. "Do you like what you do?" she asked at one point. "I do, but I liked it more when it was smaller, when I knew every person who worked there by name." "You still know them?" "I know the files. It's different." Samantha thought about that. What changed? The scale. He gently turned the glass. When a company grows, you stop making decisions about people and start making decisions about policies. And policies don't see faces. Like the punctuality policy. Like the punctuality policy. There was something honest in that moment. No defense, no justification. Just the direct recognition of someone who had looked at a mistake and decided not to look away. "My father would have done it differently," he said. "He had a way of knowing people before the rules. I lost that at some point." "You're finding it again?" He looked at her. "I'm trying." Samantha told him about Jake. Not the funny Jake from the office stories, the real Jake. The boy who was 3 when his father left and never directly asked what had happened, but sometimes stared at families in the park with an expression she pretended not to see, because it hurt too much to see it. The boy who had learned to ask direct questions as a defense mechanism, who negotiated ice cream with CEOs and mentally adopted ducks and slept with the hallway light on, but never admitted it. "He is extraordinary," Patrick said when she finished. "He is," she smiled. "And he is a lot of work." "Those two things usually go together." "You talk like someone who knows." "My mother tells me that regularly." Samantha laughed. A light laugh with no tension at all. "Eleanor is the most direct person I have ever met. She has always said what she thinks. When I was a child, I found it embarrassing. Now I think it's the most comforting thing in the world." "Why?" "Because you know exactly where you stand with her. There is no interpretation. There is no subtext." He paused. "That is rarer than it seems." Samantha understood that it was not only about Eleanor. She chose not to answer right away. She took a sip of water. Let the moment breathe. "I'm like that too," she finally said. "Too direct sometimes." "I know." "Doesn't that bother you?" "Quite the opposite." The dinner ended later than either of them had planned. They went out to the sidewalk and walked for a while with no set direction, the cool Palo Alto night making the idea of leaving less urgent than it should have been. "Jake will be asleep when you get home," Patrick said. "Probably pretending to be asleep." "Important difference." "Huge." They stopped at the corner where their paths split. Hers toward the taxi stand, his toward where the car was parked. Patrick looked at her for a moment. "I want to be honest about something." "Go ahead." "I don't know exactly how this works." He said it with a direct simplicity she had not expected. "You work with me. I'm your boss. A week ago, you were in the middle of an investigation I should have stopped before it began. And I'm aware of all of that." Samantha looked at him. "But I have spent the last few weeks trying to find a logical reason to ignore what I'm feeling. And I haven't found one that was honest." The silence lasted a few seconds. "Neither have I," she said. Patrick stayed quiet for a moment, as if the answer had come more simply than he expected. "Then we try?" "We try." There was no kiss that night. There was no rush. There was something more solid than rush. The feeling that this had arrived at the right time, after everything that had happened, and because of that, it did not need to hurry to prove it was real. He waited until she got into the taxi. Samantha looked out the window as the car pulled away, and saw Patrick still standing on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, looking in the direction of the taxi. She turned forward, smiled at nothing. At home, the hallway light was on. Mrs. Martinez was asleep in the armchair with an open book on her lap. Samantha went to Jake's room, opened the door slowly. He was lying down, eyes closed, his breathing steady like someone who was asleep. She was about to close the door when she heard, "How was it?" Samantha stopped. "You should be sleeping." "I was. I woke up."
"Jake, did it go well?" he asked, his voice still a little sleepy, but his eyes now open in the dark. Samantha stood in the doorway for a moment. "It went well," she said. Jake was silent for a second. "I knew it," he said, and closed his eyes. Samantha carefully closed the door and stood in the hallway for a moment. There was a strange and good feeling that night, the feeling that things were falling into place, not in a perfect way, because perfect did not exist, but in a true way. 3 months after that night on the sidewalk, Patrick Lancaster decided it was time to make the official boyfriend request. Not because they were not dating. They were, in a way that had grown naturally, without a formal announcement, without a set date. Dinners that had become a habit, late-night calls after Jake fell asleep, Sundays at Eleanor's house that had become part of the rhythm of the week. But Patrick wanted to do it right. He called his mother. "Mom, I need some advice." "Finally," Eleanor said on the other end of the line. "I did not say about what." "You did not need to. Talk. I want to make an official dating proposal. To Samantha." A pause. "Official how? With a ring? With a conversation? The right way?" "Patrick, you two are already dating." "I never asked formally." "You invited her to dinner. You see each other every week. Jake calls you by your first name and has already asked you to teach him how to drive when he grows up. That is dating." "I want her to know it is serious." Eleanor stayed quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, softer. "Then keep it simple. Take her to the park, the one where you went the first time. Have a picnic, and say what you feel. No memorized speech, no big production, just you being you." "That sounds risky." "Love is risky. If it were not, it would not be worth it." A pause. "Mom?" "Yes?" "Do you still have Grandma's ring?" Eleanor stayed silent for 3 whole seconds. "I do." "Can I use it?" When Eleanor answered, her voice was slightly choked up. "I saved it for the right day, sweetheart. I think the day has come." The following Saturday, at 4 in the afternoon, Patrick parked in front of Samantha's apartment with a picnic basket in the back seat. Jake opened the door before he could ring the bell. "She's in the bathroom getting ready," Jake informed him. "She's been in there for 20 minutes. "That is fine." "Are you nervous?" Patrick looked at the boy. "A little." Jake considered that seriously. "She is too. She organized the kitchen drawer twice this morning. She only organizes drawers when she is nervous." "I know." "You know she organizes drawers?" "I have learned to recognize the signs." Jake nodded, apparently satisfied with that answer. Samantha appeared at the door a few minutes later, slightly out of breath, her hair still a little damp. "Hi, sorry for taking so long." "No problem." She looked at the basket in the back seat of the car. "You brought a picnic?" "I did." "With real food?" "With real food." He opened the trunk. "There are oranges, too." Samantha stopped. "There are oranges?" A tribute. She looked at him for a second with an expression he could not completely classify. Then she smiled. Then let's go. Jake was already in the back seat with his seatbelt on. I'm going too, he announced. Jake, Samantha started. Patrick invited me. Samantha turned to Patrick. I did invite him, he confirmed without apologizing. You invited my 9-year-old son to our picnic. He is part of the package. I have known that from the beginning. Jake pointed to the front seat with a gesture that clearly said the discussion was over. Samantha got in the car. The park was quiet that Saturday afternoon. The same bench near the lake, the same trees, the same sun slowly setting over Palo Alto. They sat on the grass. Patrick opened the basket. Jake attacked the sandwiches with the urgency of someone who had not eaten in days, even though he had eaten lunch 2 hours earlier. There really are oranges, Jake said, holding one. I said there were. Why oranges at a picnic? It is a long story, Patrick said. I have time. Jake, Samantha said. What? I only asked. Patrick looked at the lake for a moment. Then he looked at Samantha. Because of the day I met your mother, he said to Jake simply. She was picking up oranges in the middle of traffic, and I realized I wanted to know the person who would do that. Jake stopped chewing. He looked at Patrick, looked at his mother, looked back at Patrick. You like her because of the oranges? I realized I liked her because of the oranges. Those are two different things. Jake thought about that for a moment with all the seriousness of his 9 years. Okay, he finally said, and went back to his sandwich. Later, Jake stepped away to the edge of the lake to pick up stones, an activity he carried out with a scientific dedication that Samantha had never been able to explain. Patrick and Samantha stayed seated on the grass, the silence between them the kind that did not need to be filled. I am happy, Samantha said at one point, without looking at him. Patrick turns to her. Is that new? Not completely, but this specific kind is. She paused. The kind that is not waiting for the next bad thing to happen. Patrick was silent for a moment. You spent a long time waiting for the next bad thing. It is part of being a single mother. You learn to expect problems before they arrive. It becomes a habit. And now? She finally looked at him. Now I am trying to unlearn it. Patrick placed his hand over hers on the grass. It was not a dramatic gesture. It was simple, natural. The same kind of gesture from that first afternoon in the park, when neither one of them had pulled away. I have something to give you, he said. She raised her eyes. He took a small blue velvet box from his pocket. Samantha went still. Patrick, it is not a marriage proposal, he said quickly. Not yet. A pause. It is a ring that belonged to my grandmother. My mother kept it, for the right moment. He opened the box. Inside was a delicate gold ring with a small blue stone. Simple, elegant. I never officially asked, he said, his voice lower now. For you to be my girlfriend. For real. With intention. With the future in mind. Samantha looked at the ring, then at him. You are asking me to be your girlfriend with your grandmother's ring. I am. In the same park where we truly met? Yes. With oranges at the picnic. With oranges at the picnic. She was silent for a moment. Her eyes stung slightly, the kind of sting that was not sadness. This is the most thoughtful thing anyone has ever done for me, she said. Is that a yes? It is a yes, Patrick. He placed the ring on her finger. His hands were slightly different than usual,
which she noticed and kept to herself. From the edge of the lake, Jake shouted, "Did she say yes?" Samantha closed her eyes. "He was listening to everything," she said. "He was listening to everything," Patrick confirmed. "Did she say yes or no?" Jake repeated. "She said yes," Samantha answered. Jake raised his arms with the same energy he used to celebrate goals, with 3 stones still in his hand, which resulted in one of them flying toward the lake. "Yes!" he shouted. A couple walking along the path beside them looked in their direction. Patrick waved politely. Samantha covered her face with her hands, but her shoulders were shaking with laughter. That night, after Jake fell asleep, Samantha stayed in the kitchen with a cup of tea, looking at the ring on her finger. It was small, simple. There was nothing extravagant about it. It was exactly right. She thought about everything that had happened since that Monday morning when she had run down the sidewalk with her squeaking shoe, late for work, never imagining that 20 oranges rolling across the pavement would change the direction of everything. There was something funny and beautiful about it. Not the kind of funny that made you laugh out loud, the kind that stayed quiet in your chest and warmed you from the inside. The phone vibrated. A message from Eleanor. "He told me. The ring looks good on you. I knew it would. Good night, dear." Samantha smiled at the screen. She typed, "Good night, Eleanor. Thank you for keeping it." The reply came quickly. "I kept it for the right person." It took a little while, but she arrived. Samantha placed the phone on the table and kept looking at the quiet kitchen, at Jake's photo on the refrigerator, at the Mother of the Year mug on the shelf, at the small cactus on the windowsill that she had brought from the office in the cardboard box that day, and that was still alive. Still alive. She turned off the light and went to sleep. 1 year after that picnic in the park, Palo Alto woke up to a spring Saturday that seems to have been ordered especially for the occasion. The sky was clear, the temperature was perfect. And in the city park, where everything had begun with an afternoon and a ring and 3 stones flying toward the lake, employees from an event company were setting up white chairs in careful rows, while a florist arranged simple yellow and white flowers on the posts along the path. Eleanor Lancaster arrived first. As always. She stood at the entrance to the park for a moment, looking at everything with that expression that mixed satisfaction and something older, something deeper. The expression of someone who recognizes a moment she always knew would come, but that still surprises her when it truly arrives. Diane arrived soon after, elegant as always, and stood beside Eleanor without needing to say anything. "It is beautiful," Diane finally said. "It is," Eleanor agreed. "His father would have liked it." Diane glanced at her. Eleanor was smiling. Samantha got ready in the apartment with help from Mrs. Martinez, who had been crying since 8 in the morning and needed to be reminded every so often to breathe. "Mrs. Martinez, I need you to be strong." "I am strong," Mrs. Martinez answered, wiping her eyes for the 4th time. "I'm just emotional." "You've been like this since you woke up?" "Because you are like a daughter to me, Samantha." More crying. "Sorry. Keep going." Jake appeared in the bedroom doorway with his suit buttoned slightly crooked, and his hair combed with a precision that had clearly taken a lot of time and effort. Samantha stopped when she saw him. He was growing up. She knew that. She saw it every day. But there were moments when the evidence arrived in a way that needed a second to be processed. This was one of those moments. "You look great," she said. "I know." He looked at her. "You too." Mrs. Martinez started crying again. "Mrs. Martinez," Jake said, "you promised." I know, I know. She got up and went to get more tissues. Jake walked over to his mother and lightly adjusted the veil that was slightly crooked. A small, practical gesture, completely his. Are you nervous? He asked. A little. You don't need to be. You already did the hard part. What hard part? All the part before today. He shrugged. Today's the easy part. Samantha looked at her son for a moment. When did you grow up so much? I grew up little by little. You were busy not noticing. She laughed. She pulled him into a hug that he accepted for exactly 3 seconds before complaining that she was going to wrinkle his suit. The park was full when they arrived. It was not a big ceremony. Patrick did not want big, and Samantha wanted it even less. It was the people who mattered. Close co-workers, real friends. Mrs. Martinez, who had managed to stop crying long enough to sit in the front row, and Eleanor, who was standing near the improvised altar under the trees, talking to the officiant with the ease of someone who knows everyone anywhere. Patrick had his back turned when Samantha arrived at the entrance of the aisle formed by the white chairs. Jake offered his arm with a ceremonial seriousness she had never seen in him before. She accepted it. Ready? He asked quietly. Ready. They started walking. Patrick turned around, and Samantha saw, in that moment, the expression on his face. It was not the expression of the CEO. It was not the controlled smile of an executive she had learned to recognize at the office. It was something else entirely. It was the face of a man looking at the person who had changed the direction of everything. She felt her eyes burn. She did not try to stop it. The ceremony was simple, and it was perfect. The officiant spoke about choices, about the small, everyday decisions that seem insignificant in the moment and only reveal their true weight when we look back, about how sometimes destiny does not arrive with a fanfare. It arrives with a torn paper bag and 20 oranges rolling across the asphalt. Some people laughed. Eleanor wiped her eyes discreetly. When Patrick said his vows, he did not read from any paper. I didn't know I was looking for you, he said, looking at Samantha. But when I saw you in the middle of that traffic, picking oranges off the asphalt for a stranger, without hesitating, without calculating, just acting because it was the right thing to do, I understood something about the kind of person you are, and about the kind of person I wanted by my side. He paused. You taught me to see people before policies, to understand that character matters more than punctuality, and that sometimes the best moments in life begin with a broken shoe and being 5 minutes late. Samantha could not hold back the laugh that came along with the tears. It was both things at the same time, and she did not try to choose between them. When it was her turn, she looked at Patrick for a second before speaking. I learned to be suspicious of things that seemed too good, she said. I learned to expect the problem before it arrived, to hold back what I felt because holding back seemed safer than taking a chance. And then you showed up, not as someone who solved the problems, as someone who stayed while the problems were being solved. That is different, and it is everything. From the front row, Jake had his arms crossed and the expression of someone trying very hard not to show emotion. It was not working. Mrs. Martinez had already completely given up on holding back her tears and was holding the tissue with both hands. Eleanor was holding Diane's hand without realizing she was doing it. When the officiant said the final words and Patrick kissed Samantha, the guests applauded. Jake waited exactly 2 seconds. Then he raised his arms. Goal! Everyone laughed. Patrick pulled away from the kiss with his shoulders shaking. He rehearsed that, Samantha said. Definitely, Patrick agreed.
I did not rehearse, Jake said from the front row. It came out naturally. Eleanor stood up and hugged them both at the same time, with a strength that completely contradicted her 72 years. I knew it, she said softly, to neither one of them in particular, or to both of them at the same time. Since that morning in traffic, I knew it. Later, when the party had calmed down and the guests were talking in small groups around the park, Samantha stepped away for a moment and stood near the lake. The same ducks. Aristotle, the smartest one according to Eleanor, was swimming in the center with the calm of someone who did not need to prove anything to anyone. Patrick came to her side without making a sound. They both stayed silent for a moment, looking at the water. Are you all right? He asked. I am great. She looked at him. I am completely, absolutely great. He took her hand. Her grandmother's ring was on her finger, now accompanied by a simple gold wedding band. Thank you, she said. For what? For stopping the car that day? Patrick was silent for a second. I did not stop the car. I was stuck in traffic. But you rolled down the window. You had your arm under my car. Details. He laughed. She laughed too. Across the park, Jake had found a group of children and was already in the middle of a negotiation involving rocks, cookies, and an agreement whose terms no one else could follow. Eleanor watched everything from the bench, satisfied, with the expression of someone who had arrived exactly where she wanted to be, and was in no hurry at all to leave. That night, long after Jake had fallen asleep in the hotel room they had reserved near the park, Samantha stayed awake for a while, looking at the ceiling. Not from worry, not waiting for the next problem. Just awake, present, with the quiet awareness of someone who had reached a place she did not know she had been looking for. She thought about the Monday morning from a year and a few months earlier, about the shoe that squeaked, about the pigeon on the sidewalk, about the oranges, about the purse left on the sidewalk while she stopped traffic to help a stranger. There was something she had said to Jake that night after she was fired, when he had asked if everything was going to be all right. You have been through worse. You can do this. She had done it. Not because everything had worked out automatically, but because she had made the right choices at the right moments, even when the right choices cost something. And as she thought about that, she understood something no book had ever managed to explain before. Life does not reward perfection. It rewards the courage to keep being who you are, even when being who you are has a price. The world is full of people who arrive at the right time, say the right thing, and do everything according to plan, and still, they reach the end of the day with the feeling that something essential is missing. Because punctuality is not character. Efficiency is not kindness. And following the rules is not the same as following your heart. The greatest discovery a human being can make is not found in some grand destination. It is found in an ordinary moment, on any sidewalk, on any morning, when you discover what you are capable of when no one is watching, and there is nothing to gain. That is the moment when you truly know yourself. And sometimes, if you are lucky, that is the very moment your life begins. What did you think of this story? Leave your opinion in the comments. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell to receive more emotional stories like this. See you next time.